So welcome to the third session of the Zoho CRM Developer Series. In today's session, we'll be covering Search API and COQL API. So before we dive into today's session, here's a quick recap of what happened in the previous sessions. So in session 1, we covered the basics of what an API is, what are the different Zoho CRM APIs, the different categories of Zoho CRM APIs, how authorization is handled for our APIs, and the different CRUD operations supported on our records through the APIs. And in session 2, we covered Zoho CRM's Python SDK. And we also spoke in depth about API credit calculation and concurrency. We spoke about how you can use Python SDK to integrate your application easily with Zoho CRM, how you can use Python SDK's helper classes to make API calls. And in API credit calculation and concurrency, we spoke about how API credits are calculated for different APIs, how concurrency is handled, and how rate limiting is performed for our API calls. So coming to today's session, like I said, we'll be covering Search API and COQL API. So coming to Search API. So what is Search API? Just like the name suggests, you want to search for records in a module. So when you want to search for records in a module through an API call, you can use the Search API. So you can search based on the use case. For example, if you have an email and you want to look for records based on that email, you can use the email in your Search API. If you have a search term in the form of a word, you can use this word as a parameter in the Search API. And if you have a phone number, then you can look for matching records that have the phone number. Or let's say you have criteria, you want to search based on some criteria, then you can use the criteria parameter in the Search API. So these are the examples for the different syntaxes. So email, again, it's a parameter. So this is the request URL. So this is going to be your API domain followed by CRM and the version of APIs that you're using, and then the API name of the module from which you want to retrieve records. And then you're performing a search here. And then like I said, search supports 4 parameters based on the use case. So one is email, the other one is word, the other one is phone, and the other one is criteria. Like I said, you can search based on an email, you can search based on a word, you can search for a phone number, and you can also apply a criteria to filter records. So as you can see in this criteria, it filters based on the last name and first name, and this has different operators and then the search terms here. So in the future slides, in the upcoming slides, we'll discuss each of these. So why should you use Search API? So when you create or update records in Zoho CRM, apart from database, we also index the data in a search engine. So when you look for records, when you search for records, we directly fetch data from that search engine. So your search is much faster. And then let's say you want to look for records, but you do not know the individual record IDs of the records. In that case, you can use Search APIs because you can apply criteria. You can search based on a word, email, or a phone number. And then when you want to perform search based on a specific module, then you can use the Search API. So like I said, you can use criteria, and in criteria you can look for different data types. So these are the different data types that Search API supports. You can search for a pick list field, you can search for an owner lookup, you can search for user lookup, you can look for a phone number, you can search for a multi-select pick list. So these are the different data types that Search API supports. And then operators, like I said, we have criteria. So for you to apply criteria, you need a set of operators for you to be able to apply that condition. So here in criteria parameter, these are the different operators that are supported. So we have equal, starts with, in, not equal, greater than, less equal, less than, and between. So for every data type, we have a set of operators that you can use. For example, for Boolean, if you're looking for searching for a Boolean field in your criteria, then you can use equals and not equal. Similarly, if you're using lookup, you can use equals, not equal. And similarly, for every data type, we have the different corresponding operators. So we have a wide range of data types that Search API supports, and these are the corresponding operators that you can use in the API call. And then your search term might have special characters or like parentheses or comma. In that case, we recommend that you escape and encode. And it is also a best practice to encode the entire criteria so that you get the desired result. And then some points to remember is that you can search for a maximum of 10 criteria. And like I said, Search API indexes the data to an external search engine. So let's say you create a record and then you update a record. So what happens is, apart from updating that data into a DB, we also index it to another search engine. So when you create a record or update a record and immediately use the Search API to look for the record, then you might get a 204 no content because of the data indexing. So this data indexing delay is there in Search API, and Search API consumes one API credit. So let's just look for different examples. I'll show you a demo of Search API. So as many of you know, we have our Postman collection that is there in Zoho CRM's Developer Workspace. So this is the collection that I forked from our workspace. As you can see, we have all boilerplate requests, right from authorization to the different versions of APIs that we've released. So here I have forked our collection. So as you can see, authorization, everything is set up. So let's just go to right from token collection and token generation. I'll show you. So this is the Zoho API console, apiconsole.zoho.com. So here I have a self client. So for this, I'll be for today's COQL and Search API, these are the scopes that you require. So one is the module scope, where because you want to perform module specific search, which means you'll be dealing with data from modules. So you'll need modules scope. And then COQL.read is the scope for accessing the COQL API. And we have Zoho search.securesearch.read. This is the scope for performing search, that is for using the Search API. And apart from this, I might need user scope and settings.all scope. So these are the scopes that we'll need for today's session. So coming to Zoho API console, I have already created a client. So I have my client ID and client secret here. And then I'm going to give the scope here. I'm going to choose the time duration. So this is to generate a grant token. So as per the OAuth flow, you need to generate a grant token, and then you have to give that grant token in exchange for access and refresh tokens. So only when you authorize your API call with access tokens will you be able to make API calls. So here I have chosen the duration of the grant token as 10 minutes, which means under 10 minutes I'll have to generate access and refresh tokens using this grant token. So this is a description of the scope. So I have different orgs, different environments here. So as you all know, tokens are environment specific. So here I'm creating a token for the production environment. So this is my grant token. And then as you can see, I have my environment set up here. So I have my client ID, client secret, all the different variables that I need. So when you fork our collection, all the variables will be here. All you have to do is you have to replace the values here. So you have to give your client ID, a client secret, and then this is the API call to generate access and refresh tokens. So here I have to give my grant token that I just generated. Because this is a self client, it doesn't have a redirect URI, so I have not checked this. So once I've given my authorization code or the grant token, I can just generate the tokens. So I have my access token, refresh token for this scope, and this is the API domain. So which means my data is in the .com domain, which means it is in the US data center. So I have to make API domains to the API calls to this domain. And then token type is bearer, which means this is an access token, and then expires in 3600 seconds, which means this access token for this scope is valid only for 3600 seconds, which is nothing but an hour. So let's just go to, today I'll be making use of the V6 APIs. So coming to records, I have generated access token, refresh token for the scope, and this is my API domain and the token type and expires in. So in our Postman collection, we have different versions, different folders for each version. So for today, I'll be making API calls using the V6 version APIs. So in V6 under REST APIs, we have the records APIs, and under records we have the search records. So here we have an example each for criteria, email, phone, and word. Apart from that, we'll also look at using the search API for different types of fields like date, time, owner, lookup, multi-select, quick list, and subform. So before we move here, let's just go to criteria. So as you can see, this request I have already here to save time. So here I'm making V6 API call to the leads module. This is the API name of my leads module, and using the search API. So it is search, and then in criteria, I am going to search for records where the lead status is contacted. So lead status is a pick list here. So from the different supported operators here, I've used equals as the operator here. So my aim is to retrieve records from the leads module where the lead status is contacted. So let's just try this. So as you can see, I have a response here. And then when you go to the info object at the bottom of the response, you can see the number of records that have matched my criteria. So the count says I have 20 records that have matched this criteria where the lead status is equal to contacted. So if there are more records, then this would be true. So here, let's just look for lead status. So as you can see, the lead status is contacted. So I have, records fetched through the Search API that matches my criteria. So let's just move on to tape time. So here again, I'm looking for, records from the leads module where I have my created time greater than or equal to this time. So this is in the, because it's a date time field, it is in the ISO 8601 format. So I want to fetch records whose created time is greater than or equal to this. So because we always recommend encoding criteria, so here I'm just going to encode this so that you get proper results. So let's just try this. So I have a set of records here. As you can see, I have one record that has matched my criteria. So here, when you look for, created time, you can see I have the created time here. And then let's go to subform. Okay. As you know, subform is also treated as a module in our Zoho CRM. So whenever you're making, want to use the Search API to look for subform records, then you have to make call directly to the subform module. So when you use the module's metadata API, you will get the okay. So when you use the modules API, you get the list of modules that are there in your org. So you can know the API name from here. So here I'm looking for API name. So API name is this. So when you look for API name to your module, then you will be able to get the API name for the module that you want to make your Search API call to. So here in my leads module, so I have a leads module here, and then in my leads module, I have a subform called project details. So as you can see, I have a subform called project details with a list of fields over here. So I want to fetch records, subform records from this subform that match my lead. That means I want to fetch records from this subform that are part of this lead. So let's just see how we can achieve this through the Search API. Oh, sorry, this is the query API. Search API, subform. So this is the project details is the API name of the subform that I have here. And in my criteria, I've given expected budget should be greater than or equal to 40,000 and the parent ID equals this. So this parent ID is nothing but the ID of the lead. So I want to fetch records that match the criteria of this lead. So parent ID is nothing but the ID of the lead. So ID of the lead I have here, and this is my criteria. So expected budget greater or equal to 40,000. So this has to be encoded. So I have encoded my criteria here. So let's just try this. So here I have the subform records. You can see I have one matching record. So this is the status, and this is the parent ID, which means this is the lead ID. So this is the lead ID. This is the name of the lead. So this subform record is part of this lead. So I have, this is how you search for records from the subform. So coming to multi-select pick list. Here I have again in the UI, I have a multi-select pick list. called foreign languages. So this can take the values Chinese, French, Japanese, Korean, and Spanish. So I want to search for records that have foreign languages, Chinese, French, or Spanish. So I'll encode this. So the in operator behaves like contains. So my criteria contains Spanish, French, and Chinese. So this record has Spanish, Chinese, Spanish, Chinese. As you can see, this record has Korean and Spanish. But because in behaves like contains, my record contains Spanish also in foreign languages field. So this record is also returned. So I have a total of 9 records that match this criteria. So this is how you can use criteria. So in our doc as well as in the Kaizen post, we have an example for each of the data type and the different operators that you can use for each. So you can refer to them. And then coming to the email. Email I have here. I want to look for records that have the email abc@abc.com. So the search parameter is email here, and this is my value here. Again, we have to encode this. So once I encode, so I have the record with matching email ID. So the info object gives you the number of records that have matched the criteria, that have the email that you've specified in the request. Similarly, you can use the phone parameter to look for fields that have matching phone number. These are very straightforward. So when you just search for phone, you can see that you have a record that has the matching phone number. Again, I have one record that has matched the phone number. Similarly, when you use Word, you can just type a word here, and then you can so this will return records that have Zilker in any of the fields. For example, here the company field has the term Zilker. Similarly, it could have the word Zilker in email field as well. So this could be in any of the fields. So Word also behaves like contains. So when any of the fields in your module have the word Zilker, then it will return the matching records. So again, when you go to count, it shows that I have about 7 records that have the word Zilker in them. So this is about so next is COQL API. COQL API is also called as the query API. So COQL stands for CRM Object Query Language. So this is SQL syntax-based query. So many of you are well versed in using SQL's select query. So COQL also is similar to SQL's select query. So COQL also uses select query in the request, and you can use COQL API to query using the module and field API names. And another advantage of using COQL API is that you can query for records from cross modules that are linked via lookup fields. For example, you have a multi-select lookup field, then obviously there will be a linking module that is created. So you can use COQL API to fetch records from the linking module as well. So this is very useful to query for records from cross modules. Now, why should you use COQL API? Like I said, it is a query-based search. So because many of us are very comfortable using the SQL syntax, and since query API is also based on SQL syntax, it is very easy for you to use. And then when you want to retrieve more records, let's say Search API, you can retrieve up to 200 records per API call. Whereas when you use COQL API, you can retrieve up to 2,000 records per API call. And then you can sort records based on a field, and then you can using different SQL comparators, you can retrieve data about the module or its lookup fields. And then because you can query for cross modules, you can use the dot operator, and then you can get data from the lookup modules as well. And then you can use up to 25 conditions per API call in the COQL API, whereas Search API only allowed 10 criteria in the criteria parameters. COQL allows you to use up to 25 conditions per API call. And like I said, it supports the select query, and then you can use a maximum of 50 field API names in the select column, which means up to 50 fields you can query in your COQL API. And then we have different clauses, so that allows you to specify conditions in these clauses, and then you can filter records. So these are the clauses that COQL API supports. We have the where clause, we have the from clause, we have order by, limit, offset, and group by. So where clause is where you'll be giving your condition to query for records, and then from is where you'll be querying for records from. It is essentially the module's API name. And then you can order by, that is, you can sort the response space, you can sort the records using this order by clause, and you can use limit to limit the number of records that you want to fetch per API call. And you can also use offset for pagination. For example, if you've retrieved around 500 records and you want to retrieve the next 500 records, then you can use this offset. And you can also use group by to group the records. And COQL also supports the aggregate functions. So the aggregate functions that this API supports are sum, max, min, average, and count. And COQL API also supports the wildcard character. So as many of you know, wildcard in like operator, it is used to achieve functionality that is similar to contain, starts with, and ends with operators. So COQL API also supports wildcard character. And again, these are the different data types that COQL supports. And for every data type, these are the supported operators that you can use. As you can see, there are a lot of operators for different data types. So you can easily, look for query for records. So as you can see, almost all data types are supported in COQL. And a few points to remember with respect to COQL API, that COQL keywords are not case sensitive. For example, select in uppercase is similar to select in lowercase. And when you use multiple conditions in the where clause, you have to make sure to enclose them properly so that the condition is applied properly. And then if you not specified order by, which means you not specified the sorting, then the default sorting order will be ascending based on the records ID. And then when you want to query for subform or multi-select lookup fields, you have to directly query to the subform module or the linking module. So we'll see examples of all of these. And then a few other points are that when you use SQL reserved keywords in COQL, then you should enclose them within quotation marks so that there is no confusion. And then you cannot use multi-line fields, that is text area fields cannot be used in criteria. And these are the default values for limit and offset. For limit, it is 200, and offset, it is 0. And like I already mentioned, you can use a maximum of 50 columns, that is 50 API names, field API names in your select query. And there is a little trick for you to, like I said, you can query for a maximum of 10,000 records, but there is a little trick that allows you to fetch beyond 10,000 records. I'll give you a demo of that as well. So credits are based on the value of limit. So for example, you use limit to query for 1 to 200 records, it will be 1 API credit. If you want to query for 200 to 1,000 records, this API will consume 2 API credits. And if you want to query for 1,001 to 2,000 records, then this API will consume 3 API credits. So let's just have a brief demo of COQL APIs. So here, again, like I said, this is the Postman collection where we have the query API, the different success responses, different error responses here. So let's start with a simple query. So like I said, this is the select query. So this is the, like you have SQL select column. So here, when you give select, you're selecting select columns here. So these are the fields that you want to select from leads, and this is the condition. So in the where clause, you specify the condition. So here the condition is last name is not null. And here I'm sorting by created time and ID, record ID in the ascending order, and I'm limiting it to 200 records per page. So here, let's just try this. As you can see, I have a set of records here. As you can see, I have the last name, I have the created time, and ID is given by default in the response. and then I have 200 records here. So I have more records here. So you can use the offset here, and then you can either use offset here, or you can change the value of limit to query for more records. So let's just try for a subform. So here, like I said, it's the same subform called project details. So I'm selecting this field from project details subform. Where is my condition? So expected budget is greater than or equal to 40,000, and my parent ID, which is the lead ID, is this. So this is my select query. I have my ID of the subform record, and then this is the field. So as you can see, I have one record that has matched my condition in the where clause. So let's just COQL also supports alias. For example, when you simply give select column as account name, then your response will have ID for account name, which means account name will give you the ID of the account record. So in this example, I have aliased account name to be rendered as account ID. So this query basically selects account name, and so account name will give you the ID. So I want the account's name as well. So here I have aliased account ID as account name, and then account name dot account name, which means this will give me the name of the account. So here account name dot account name, I have aliased as account name, and then I also want to get the details of the parent of the account. So for example, I have contacts module where account is a default lookup. So I want this, let's say this contact has an account called Zilker, and this Zilker has a parent account called King. So I want to fetch these details of this from this module. So this is going to be my select query. So I'm going to select account name and aliased as account ID, the name of the account aliased as account name, and then the parent account's ID, and then the parent account's name. So account name dot parent account dot account name will give you the name of the parent account. So here in my where clause, my condition is that the parent account's name should be King. So let's just try this. You can see account ID gives me the ID of the account. Account name will give me the name of the account, and parent account ID will give me the ID of the account that this account is associated to, and then parent account name will be King, and this will be the ID of the record in the contacts module. So this is how you can use alias. So as you can see, as is also not case sensitive. As in all caps is the same as all in lowercase letters. So this is how alias support works. Let's just try for a multi-select lookup field. So coming back to the UI. So in my leads module, I have something called listings. So this is a multi-select lookup field. So I have a custom module called listings. I have a custom module called listings where I have a set of records. And then I have in my leads module, I have a multi-select lookup field to this listings module. So whenever I have a multi-select lookup field, a linking module is created. So the linking module here is leads versus listings. So when I want to query for I want to use a COQL API that has multi-select lookup fields, then I have to directly query to the linking module. So here I have queried, I have selected interested listings, interested leads from leads versus listings. So this is my linking module, and this is the condition where interested listings is not served. So in my leads versus listings linking module, you can see I have two lookups. One looks up to the leads module, and one looks up to the listings module. So when I want to fetch details about this, I have to make a call directly to the linking module. So here from this linking module, I'm fetching these two lookup. So let's just try this. Whenever you have a subform or a multi-select lookup, then you have to make API calls directly to the subform module or the linking module respectively. So I have the interested listings, I have the record ID here. For interested leads, I have the record ID here. And this is the record ID in the linking module. So this is how we use COQL API for linking module. So pick list lookup, they're all very straightforward. So here for the pick list, I'm selecting last name, first name, full name, account name from the contacts module. And in my where clause, I have my conditions here. So as you can see, I have enclosed them properly so that I get the desired response. So last name and first name, and then account name dot account name is Zilka. So lookup also supports a lot of operators, so you can use them according to your need. So here I have one matching record. Now, I said that you can query for more than 10,000 records. So let's just see how that happens. So let's say this is my first query where I'm selecting these fields from the leads module, and this is my condition. And here I have ordered by created time and ID, which means I've sorted the records based on the created time and ID in the ascending order. So here my limit is 200, which means I get up to 200 records. Let's say I have fetched up to 10,000 records, and I still have more records to fetch from this module. So how do you do it? So what you have to do is you have to make a query by changing this. You have to make a change in this query. So here, what you do is I have a query where I'm again fetching for last name, created time from the leads module, where I have the same condition here. And then I'm adding one more condition to my where clause. So here, when I got my response, I've sorted in the ascending order based on the created time and ID. So which means the last record that I have here is the most recently created record. So which means there are more records, let's say. So I have fetched up to 10,000 records, and I want to fetch more records. So what I do is I copy this and then I sort based on. So I give this in my condition. Then again, I have the ID here, and then I give it in this. Here. So what this essentially means is that I am fetching records whose created time is greater than the created time of the record of the last record that I got in the previous response. And also, I want to fetch records whose IDs are greater than the ID of the record that I fetched last. So this is how you can, fetch for records more than 10,000. So let's just try this. So as you can see, the ID that I gave was 649. So I have records whose IDs are greater than that and whose created time is also greater than the created time I have specified here. So this is how you can query for more than 10,000 records. So I hope you like this little trick. So this is a comparison between Search API and COQL API. So Search API is nothing but a fuzzy-based search. By fuzzy-based search, we mean that let's say you're looking for, there is something called Will Smith in one of the last name or full name fields. So if your search term includes Will, it will still give you the record that has Will Smith. And if your search term has Smith, it will still give you the record that has Will Smith. So this is a fuzzy-based search, whereas COQL API is a direct query-based search. Only when the conditions are met, it will give you the list of matching records. And then, like I said, we index the created or updated records in an external search engine. So when you use Search API to retrieve the most recently created or updated record, there is a delay. Whereas in COQL API, we directly give the records from the DB, so there is no delay when you fetch for the recently added or updated records. Search API allows you to do a single module data search, whereas COQL API allows you to query for data in the cross modules because they are connected through lookups. Search API doesn't allow you to sort, aggregate, or group by, whereas COQL API allows you to sort, aggregate, and group by different fields. And then the maximum records that you can fetch per API call using the Search API is 200, whereas in COQL API you can you can fetch up to 2000 records per API call. And the maximum number of records that you can fetch using the Search API is 2000, whereas a COQL API allows you to get a maximum of 10,000 records per unique criteria. By unique criteria, I mean, when I showed you the demo, the first so the first query was this. The first query. So we consider this a unique query. So for this, using this query, you can fetch up to 10,000 records. Whereas, like I said, you want to search beyond 10,000 records. So here, I have altered my where clause here. I have altered the condition in my where clause here. So this is considered another unique query. So using this query, again, you can look for, you can query for 10,000 records. So this is the difference between Search API and COQL API. So this brings us to the end of today's session.